cults have existed throughout history. Some bloody and brutal, while other cults are just stupid as hell. For example, the Church of Euthanasia, founded by Chris Korda. The cult's goal is to restore balance to Earth by reducing the numbers of living humans, through abortion, suicide, cannibalism and sodomy. So as you see, there have been and still are many weird and silly cults. However, some cults are just so evil and gruesome that you probably wouldn't believe that they did actually exist. The Fall River Satanic Cult. In the late 70s, a cult called the Fall Rivers Cult was located in Massachusetts and was led by a man named Carl Drew. Carl had many prostitutes who worked for him. He demanded that people would follow his orders without questioning because he claimed that he was the son of Satan. The cult had around 10 members at its peak, and all of them were involved one way or another in the Fall River sex trade. The group started to hold numerous satanic rituals deep in the local woods. Carl would read from a satanic Bible in a dark twisted voice, while the other members used drugs and had sex. But this wasn't enough for Carl Drew. He decided that they needed to be human sacrifices. The cult's first sacrifice was a 19-year-old prostitute named Donna Lavescu. They lured her into the deep woods. They then tied her hands and then smashed her head with a rock, killing the poor girl. She was later found on October 13, 1979. Late in the 1980s, the body of Barbara Raposa, the cult's second human sacrifice, was discovered behind a local printing plant in Fall River, Mass. The victim's skull had been crushed and her hands were tied together. The cult's third and last victim was a 20-year-old Karen Marsden, a former cult member that had been present during the murder of Donna Lavescu. The murder of Donna apparently terrified her so much that she decided to go to the police. On the same night, Karen Marsden was kidnapped and taken to a cult gathering outside Westport to be sacrificed. They tortured her by ripping her fingernails and hair out. They then beat her with a stone to the head before Carl snapped her neck with his bare hands. Carl then ordered a cult member with the name Robbie Murphy to remove her head, which the cultists then used as a football. All the members were later arrested and 2 members, including Carl Drew, were given life sentence. Robbie Murphy testified against the rest of the cult members and was given a lighter sentence. However, many who worked on the investigation believe she was actually the mastermind behind the crimes. The Vampire Clan. A 16-year-old teenager named Rod Farrell was born in Kentucky and was obsessed with vampires. Rod had even declared himself to be a vampire named Vesago, and he created his own vampire clan, which consisted of Scott Anderson and 2 teenage girls. Rod eventually moved to Florida, where he met Heather Wendorf at his new school. Heather became fascinated by Rod's obsession with vampires, and the pair began to perform rituals in which they would drink each other's blood. After a while, Rod had to move back to Kentucky, which made Heather depressed. Heather told Rod that she was miserable at home. Rod came up with a solution to help Heather. On November 25th, 1996, Rod and his vampire clan drove to Heather's home. Rod and Scott walked into the house. Rob grabbed a crowbar and beat Heather's dad, Richard Wendorf, to death as he was sleeping on the couch. Heather's mother, Ruth Wendorf, saw the 2 teenagers and threw her hot coffee on Rod. Rod responded by beating Ruth to death. Rod then burned the letter V into Richard's body. They then stole the family's car and drove away. The bodies were discovered by Heather's sister after she returned from work that night. The vampire clan drove to New Orleans, but they needed money. One of the girls called her mother to ask for money. The police quickly tracked where the call came from and arrested all the clan members. Rod pled guilty to 2 counts of felony murder and was sentenced to death by the judge. The sentence was later reduced to life in prison. The Superior Universal Alignment Cult. In 1989, in a town called Altamira, Brazil, young boys, no older than 15, began to go missing. The authorities did nothing, and around 19 young boys disappeared during the next 4 years. 6 bodies were later found in the jungle. The young boys had been castrated and then left to die in the deep jungle. 5 boys were fortunate enough to escape, even after being castrated. They went to the police, but the police did nothing. It wasn't until 2003 that the police were finally able to arrest 4 cult members from the Superior Universe Alignment cult. The cult's leader was a woman in her mid-70s named Valentina de Andrade. The other 3 cult members include a businessman, a doctor, which was probably the one that did the castrating on the young boys, and a policeman. The cult members explained that they believed that all children born after 1981 were evil and needed to be killed. They also believed that the world would end and that they would be picked up by a spaceship that would take them to another planet. The cult members were sentenced from 32 to 77 years in prison. The Satanic Teen Cult. In 2008, in the Russian town of Yaroslav, a group of teenagers between 17 and 19 was led by a man named Nikolai Ogolubyak, and they had started to pray to Satan and sacrifice small animals. The animal sacrifice soon escalated to human sacrifice. Later in the same year, 4 younger teenagers were lured by the cult to a forest on the outskirts of the city. The 4 young teenagers was forced to drink alcohol and then were brutally attacked by the cult members. Each victim was stabbed 666 times, and if you did not know it already, the number 666 is the devil's number. After the stabbing, the cult members started to eat at the bodies of the dead teenagers and later threw the leftovers into a large pit with satanic markings around it. The mutilated bodies were discovered 2 months later, and 6 cult members could be arrested and charged with the murders. The cult leader Nikolai got 20 years in jail, and the rest of the cult members was deemed unfit for trial and was ordered to undergo psychiatric treatment. The Ripper Crew. In 1981, Lena Sutton was abducted by a group of 4 young men in Chicago. The 4 men raped and then stabbed Lena to death. Her body was found 10 days later on a field in Villa Park, Illinois. Her body had been mutilated and her left breast amputated. This was the first in a string of 18 murders of women. In every case, the left breast was removed. The 4 young men behind the gruesome murders referred themselves as the Ripper Crew and was led by a man named Robin Geist. The other 3 members were Edward Spritzer, Andrew Kokoralis, and Thomas Kokoralis. The group would take Robin's van and drive around the city, trying to lure women to their van. But if that did not work, would they just kidnap them from the street. They would then take the victim back to Robin's apartment to be sacrificed to Satan. They would first rape the victim and then remove the left breast with the help of a piano wire. They would then masturbate onto the amputated breast and then slice it up and eat it. While all this was happening, Robin would read out loud from the Satanic Bible. Fortunately, the Satanic cult came to an end when the group kidnapped a prostitute named Beverly Washington. They raped and stabbed her and then removed her left breast. They then dumped her by a railroad track. She was later found alive and was able to give a good description of her attackers and the van they had used to abduct her. The group was soon arrested and 3 members of the cult confessed to the crimes. But the leader Robin Geist denied the crimes, and as a result Geist could not be charged with the murders, but was given 120 years in prison for the assault on Washington. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, please hit the like button to support my channel and subscribe for more videos.